one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, you made a comment about the BIA that you and I will be participating. I won't be able to attend the meeting next week, but I'd like to be part of it somehow. And we are doing that with Tour the Isle. Tour the Isle, and DIA is part of it.
Oh, okay, cool.
No vote. No changes, no vote.
Hi, my name's John. I just rode a bike over today, actually to the meeting, and I noticed that there's road construction between Grow and I believe Manchester on East River, and there's loose gravel. And I was riding my bike, and I'm curious if there would be any opportunities to actually maybe post a sign that there's loose gravel, because if you ride a bike, you're more chance to slip and and slide on that gravel. Maybe a Facebook page posting or signs in front of and after the construction, possibly too. If somebody's riding a bike.
That work was done just today. Okay. Are you speaking about the very small diameter gravel?
Yeah, you can slide on it. It's loose. I literally took the turn, not aware that that was there. And
I appreciate what you're saying, but I would just like to explain that is a part of the technique of building that road. It's been resurfaced as of this morning, and they are tarred it, and then they put those small stones on, and they roll them in, and then you need to give a little time for the street and the tar to congeal and harden, and probably tomorrow they'll sweep it. There won't be any more stones.
That's process.
Yeah.
I think what you're asking is temporarily, while there's construction going on, have it moving forward that could have a sign that says.
correct, yeah, because
Understood.
is I don't know. Is there any potential other locations that may go through a similar process?
There are 6 miles of road going to be done that way, so we'll bring it up to the DPS tomorrow.
Additionally, we did get. Thank you. So additionally, we did get public comment via our email address at gibikeped@gmail.com. This comes from Annette Chow, and she was wondering about when the bike path on Horse Mill Road would be completed. Obviously, the project itself is completed, but she had concerns about the wood chips near Park Lane and said that she was under the impression that that was a temporary solution that would be fixed once the drainage at that intersection was solved. And her issue with the wood chips is that it's not a surface that her sons can rollerblade on. She considers that somewhat of a safety issue. So I did email her back just to let her know kind of the history behind that, and that what is actually I do have a graphic for that as well. So So this is the intersection of Horse Mill and Park Lane. And the area in yellow that's along Horse Mill Road, not the crosswalk, is the way it exists today. When we were doing the planning on this project, the idea was to either have one or two ramps going into the intersection. But in order to do that, you legally, from a Americans with Disabilities Act standpoint, you have to have a receiving ramp on the other end. You have to essentially create a crosswalk, because if you put somebody into the street, you have to get them out legally. And if there's somebody that has sight problems, they might not be able to tell that you can't get out of the street, and so it proposes a problem. So what you have to do, again, is have that receiving ramp on the other side. On the northeast corner of this intersection, there still is some drainage issues, and it wasn't solved through our through the work of this commission and DPS. It's just it's kind of out of the scope of the project. It was a little bit too much, so we didn't have enough room for a ramp on that east side of the north side of the intersection. What we also did look at was a crosswalk going south on the west side of the intersection going to the Groseal Presbyterian Church. And unfortunately, that fell through at the time. So that's why Wayne County would not allow us to actually put a ramp, into the street. And so, the creative minds here in this commission said, well, we know that people are going to continue to do this. So rather than just having, a muddy mess as people are trying to, go from the end of the path into the road, let's at least put down wood chips, kind of formalize it a little bit, and provide a surface that most users could utilize until we figured out how to solve this problem. So, I made mention to her that it's something that we're still continuing to look at. And most recently, even after the DPS meeting last week, I was talking with some folks, and they said that the Presbyterian Church might be interested in talking about that ramp now, because they were under the impression that we wanted to push a path all the way through their property. And they had just installed some trees in the past, and somehow there was a communication breakdown. But we might be able to move forward with that, and I would like to work with folks within the township government to see if we can make that happen. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about that, or anything that they'd like to direct at Annette? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on. So now we'll be into old business, and the first item we have is update with the fountain and brick installation. Last month, Erin had said that she was going to be working with the township to find out what the actual, if we did have a profit or a surplus from the brick sales.
I believe that's in the email, or it was attached with the agenda. Ann had sent the notes. Unfortunately, I did not print the agenda. I think it was around, was it 1800?
I have it.
Mm-hmm.
I can pull it up on my phone if everyone can wait for me. That's how much. Right here.
Okay.
Okay, so we have remaining after the end of that project, although I'm not sure if there are any costs still to install the remainder of the bricks. So after we had put our final order in for the bricks, we have $1,865.07. And Wally, I think, can speak to the installation cost for the final shipment.
We have an estimate from Carl Moore last fall for $1,500 to do that installation. Carl did the installation, has never charged us for it yet. Intends to finish the installation, and I believe at the same price. So it's $1,500 of that $1,800 is going to be allocated to finishing the project. I spoke to the township today, and they spoke to Carl. Carl intends to start in 2 weeks to finish the bricks.
Okay, now is it for the second half or the whole project is $1,000 something? The installation fee, is it just for
The installation fee alone is total.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not an additional amount.
Mm-hmm. It looks like total there was about $8,000 for the fountain and its installation, and then $3,000 for the bricks, and then the 1,500 for the installation of the bricks, leaving us with approximately $300 in profit. So a lean operation. I
Good
think.
job.
Thank you, everyone, for your hard work on that, especially Aaron and Wally. Greatly appreciate it.
May I
Jane
ask-
with the flyers.
If I may ask, will we ever be revisiting this again? Brick installation?
What do you mean by revisiting? Like, is in for calling for more bricks, or?
More donations of people that may have missed it, for their family or whatever, engraving? Or is this totally done? Something to think about in the future?
This one's done,
This one's done?
but that doesn't mean we can't do another one.
Okay.
And there has been some rumbling about putting in another drinking fountain. So
That's a great idea, something to work on in the
don't
future.
don't be surprised.
Thank you.
Hope with the same kind of fountain. Have the same kind of fountain if you have another one in the future.
Potentially, yeah. Great. Moving on. Wally,
Oh,
for the Barradour.
you got the email. Wonderful. The Barradour is something that my proud Wayne State University is putting on August 22nd, and we're getting closer and closer to finalizing all of this. I also sent you a letter which was promptly rescinded by the author. He sent out a revised one, and I did not send it to you. Nothing exciting about it. He had a date wrong, and he had some information wrong, but Michael Hicks rescinded it and sent out a new one. But the bottom line is that this is a 100-mile race, and over 100 people are already enrolled in the entire 100-mile run. So, and it's not a run, it's a bicycle race. And you can call it a race. It's not structured. This is no lazy ride. This is these are people who are going to be hammering it for 100 miles. It's going to be a heck of an endurance. We're doing practice runs every week now, and getting people in shape. And our own Tom Malvesto is on his own regimen, and he plans on running in this. He's going to do 62 miles. So, proud of Tom for doing that. He just got out of working the Walk the Path event by doing that. But I can tell you a little bit more about Barradour if you flip to the other. Is there a second page that you put up, Brian?
I did not. I can.
Well, that's okay.
Okay.
We really don't need to do it. I gave you some of the rough details.
Mhm.
As we get closer, you'll get better details. Walk the Path, also on the same day, Jane will be designing the brochure. She's already volunteered graciously to do that. So there are some tools for you right now, Jane, in your email, and we will work together to combine this with Walk the Path and the garage sale. It's going to be a busy day. That evening, as a matter of fact, Sacred Heart is having their 100-year anniversary dinner. So this island is going to be hopping with people. And the idea that we see about this is that if we participate, and DPS has a commitment to participate, and Recreation has a commitment to participate, Greenways Open Space has a commitment to participate, we ought to be able to fill up the commons on Macomb and Meridian with a lot of good information. I can tell you one other thing that's coming. The Forestry Division has some sort of a interactive trailer that talks about forest issues. And we're supposed to pick that up from Grand Rapids and bring it here and set it up in the parking lot immediately south of the commons so that kids can go through and learn a little bit about forestry. So this is going to be really quite the event, and it'll probably rain cats and dogs. Just by luck, but it's going to be. It should be fun. If the weather was like today, it would be a beautiful day.
We know that DPS is going to have a booth there, be talking about their upcoming proposed millage. Recreation has their master plan update. Is there I know that we're moving ahead with the non-motorized plan, and Greenways and Open Space has been talking about the purchase of additional open space, as well as potential trails policies. At least in the past, I know they were. Do you think that there could be something that we work on together, so we have a common message for the event, rather than just 4 separate booths doing 4 separate things?
Best way to find that out is for one chairman to call the other 3. Right?
I can do that.
Suggest that if you'd like to see that happen. But I don't have any problem with 4 different entities out there passing out different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be out there passing out hot dogs and lemonade too. So,
Mm-hmm.
and watching bicyclists go by at 18 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. Will you be there? Barradour on Wayne State. Barradour is a fundraising event. It costs you $36 to get in, for which you get a T-shirt, a unique-looking T-shirt. You will get food before, during, and after, and a couple of free beer passes at one of the local breweries downtown when you finish your run, and the undying gratitude of a bunch of kids that need money to graduate. Nice of him. President Wilson has got his heart in the right place for us.
I'd like to ask him a question. As a biker, if you bike past the gazebo, would that make you stop? What would make you stop as a biker to visit us? Or would you forget it and keep biking?
It's a rest area.
Well,
We have a fountain there. You're going to have lemonade there, and it'll be prominently labeled. I believe we'll also have a couple of porta potties there.
Okay.
Please.
Sure.
I on and off the. I live here. I ride on and off the island. It appears in that event also that the riders are going to be going the bridge, the free bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And as a cyclist, as you head westbound, there's loose gravel on the Grosjean side. Plus, there's possibly little stuff, maybe in broken glass. It would enhance it, whether you're riding on a typical day or an event like this, that could be cleaned up. And as you leave off the island on the Trenton side, is there any initiative to look into that, to as far as the shoulder of the road or the road itself? There's a lot of blacktop that's broken up over there on the Trenton side.
It is a Trenton road, and we have tried mightily to get them to fix the road. They are not so amenable to it. Let's just leave it at that. But you're going to be coming through Elizabeth Park when you come on and off of the run to Grosjean section of this stretch. So Elizabeth Park will be a good ride, and you don't have but a short period from the marina entrance at Grosjean Parkway to the bridge. And I would suggest to you that, yes, our roads are bad, but there's 100 miles of road that are just as bad or worse, and these guys are going to ride in all of them.
Yeah.
We'll do our best to show ourselves off. There's not much control we have there.
We are continuing to seek creative solutions with the City of Trenton on this. Currently, the City of Trenton is working on a path on Jefferson Avenue that's going to essentially connect the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge with Elizabeth Park. So there's going to be a path along the Jefferson, as well as Wayne County Roads is redoing the intersections of Van Horn and Jefferson and Grosjean Parkway. So those areas will be improved in the near future. That being said, I know that doesn't address what you're talking about, basically between Elizabeth Park and the bridge. And we're hoping, to look at this in the future, because this is part of the Iron Bell Trail, which I'm not sure if you heard about. It's Governor Snyder's initiative to connect Ironwood, Wisconsin with Belle Isle and Detroit, biking route and a hiking route. So the hiking route comes through the downriver linked greenways, and there's the Grosse Ile option. So essentially, folks will be able to take a detour and come out and enjoy Grosse Ile and come back on the Free Bridge again, and then reconnect through Elizabeth Park and move on their way to Belle Isle. So with that, I think that's a good reason to be able to potentially work together. And I don't have any firm dates on it, but I'm hoping that there will be some improvements on Grosse Ile Parkway on both the Trenton side and the Grosse Ile side in the future.
And there's also some bushes that grow, particularly by the time you get to that time of the year. If you're on the Trenton side, actually heading back to Grosse Ile, that gets kind of overgrown. You might want to look at. So that may be another thing too to enhance.
Mm-hmm. The bushes.
Yeah, they grow.
On the south side
Mm-hmm.
coming in. Yes.
Right, yeah, south side particularly. There's some on the north, but more so on the south.
Aaron?
Is the south side, is that Trenton property or is that DTE?
South side? That's DTE property, but there is a Wayne County platted roadway.
Okay, so if we wanted road improvements, we would have to talk to Wayne County, but what he's talking about with the shrubs, that would be DTE?
If it's in the shoulder of the road, I think we should start with Wayne
More
County.
like weeds.
I believe it's within 11 feet of the road, what he's talking about.
Mhm.
It is within 11 feet.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, because it's on the shoulder.
Just a
Brian,
narrow
I may
bike
be-
path for a single bike to come onto the bridge.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there is a lot of bushes there, you're correct.
Have you ever ridden that bridge on the vehicle surface rather than on the sidewalk?
Ever? Yes. It's been a long time. I don't do that because I respect the traffic that's in the road, so I stay
Mm-hmm.
on the sidewalk, and I do so year-round, literally.
We are looking, well, I don't blame you for staying on the sidewalk, but with 100 and some bikers, they are going to be on the road and not on the sidewalk, most of them. And so the bushes really won't impact you if you're on the road. But riding on that bridge could be a little tricky.
Mm-hmm. Brings up a-
Depending on the tire that you have and the kind of whether it's a road bike or a mountain bike, you're absolutely right.
Skinny tires would be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, road bikes.
I know with the pay bridge to the north, the toll bridge, it has the asphalt surface for majority of the bridge, and that's much more conducive to bicycling. And a lot of other areas where they do have some of these older bridges that just have the metal grates, which doesn't give you good enough friction surface, so sometimes you can spill especially if it's a rainy day. They've been looking at retrofitting the actual vehicular pathways, putting down some sort of grate that will provide a better surface. I'm just wondering if that's come up in discussion for the Barradur at all. If it is a rainy day, is there something that we could do temporarily to make it
There's been no discussion about that.
do you feel like it's something that you should let them know about? And is there?
I have told them about the bridge surface, and they said that your bridge is one of the 100 miles of varying pavements, and that bridge will look very good compared to some of the pavements that people are going to
Okay.
ride on.
Well, we've done our due
That's
diligence.
That's been the discussion. I appreciate that everybody likes it to be as smooth as a pool table for all 100 miles, but it's frankly just not going to be that way. So a Barradur is a warrior, all right? That's French for warrior. And a warrior is supposed to take on whatever hits his face, all right?
I appreciate that. I rode last Sunday in the rain, so I understand where you're coming from.
I wish I could
Literally.
give you something better than that, but I'm telling you as it is. They're coming down Jefferson Avenue, right past the McLeod site, right past the Firestone site. You know what that's like, all right? So that bridge is going to look darn nice to people when they hit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm sure that the residents will just need to be patient as cyclists are going on the road, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're warning in the promotions for this that, this is a open road event where bicyclists are going to be sharing the road with traffic. So you have to be very careful. You have to be 18 years old. You have to be experienced. You should be taking part in the training programs. We're trying to teach you how to survive 100 miles, It's been quite an effort. Matt Lockwood and Michael Hicks and the school have devoted almost full time to getting this thing going.
I'd be curious, anybody here on the panel ever ridden off the bridge or off the island, going off the island or getting back on a bike?
Oh, I definitely have, both bridges.
All right. Then you understand.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your options are limited, on the free bridge. And honestly, I take the sidewalk too. And the few times where I've ridden off to catch the bus to go to Detroit, because I work in downtown Detroit, I've had my backpack on, and you know how narrow that surface is, so I'm actually undulating back and forth between
Right, the garbage truck doesn't come through.
making sure that I don't hit the structure of the bridge, but at the same time making sure that I don't lean too far that I'm going to fall off the edge. So there's lots of improvements for the bridge, like Wally was mentioning, and we're hoping in the future to work on them, but unfortunately we don't have anything in the pipeline right now.
Thank you.
Also, if I may, this border-to-door that Wally's talking about, it's a total of 4 levels. And the first level, people in the community, if they're interested, is a 20-mile run from Grosse Pointe through the east side of Detroit onto Belle Isle, where it will finish up. And then the second level is a 50-mile run that will end up in Palmer Park. And then the third level, where Tom Alvesco is running, 62-mile, that will...
The Century.
Yeah, the Century, that will end up at the old train station in Detroit. But the 100-mile, the big one, that's coming here. And I hope everybody takes advantage of watching it or even participating.
Moving on the agenda, last time we talked a little bit about a potential millage. With our potential projects moving forward with path restoration at $110,000, bridge restoration at $40,000, we'll quickly deplete our current balance for the maintenance, which is currently at $174,000. We've been potentially looking at an average annual expenditures. I know in the past, Wally had proposed potentially $125,000 per year is what we could use to make sure that our paths are in tip-top shape, as well as the bridges. I talked with folks at the township, and as it is currently, 1 mil would fetch us $574,000 a year, which is way too much for maintenance. Half a mil would be $287,000, and a quarter of a mil would be $143,000. I know that we don't have to look specifically at these, specific breakdowns. For example, the Department of Public Services is looking at 2.55 mils for the combined road and sewer projects. Additionally, I know that the schools will be looking at another millage this fall because the proposed millage from this May did not pass. So we're looking at a lot of potential millages tacked on to a current millage rate, which is about 45 mils. So I know that when potential homeowners are looking at bang for your buck as far as tax value, 45 mils is starting to look very comparable with Southgate and Lincoln Park and Wyandotte. I don't know their exact rates right now, but I know in the past they're between the 45 and 49 mils. So I just, when we start this conversation here, I just wanted to put it out there that, what is the best way for us to move forward with trying to maintain our paths, given the realities of what our millage rate is currently and some of the proposed millages that are going through, which, are just as needed, if not more so, than the paths. The floor is open for any questions or comments or ideas.
The process that we're going to have to go through is going to have to recognize what is an expected annual maintenance need. We have a very, very good bike path system. We are, in the last couple of years, bringing it up to and improving on its condition considerably. Things that we are going to do to this bike path this year. Just when you look at the bridges and the improvement that we will make to the bridges, the repairs that will take those bridges that were built 25 years ago and make them last another 25 years without expenditure by just changing the way we take care of them. Specifically, what I'm driving at the bridges about taking care of them is cleaning them properly once a year, staining them with a first-class UV-resistant stain or blocking seal. We're going to give our bridges an almost like new look. Our bike paths, we've done some good work in the last couple of years, and we need to do some more this year. So we're gonna spend somewhere around $140,000 this year, and that's right. It's going to empty the purse. That's what the purse was for. Now, it's my firm belief that our island residents love these bike paths. And when they see that we are devoted to making sure that they are first class and, and flawless, they'll be willing in maintaining what we have. I think that it'll be an easier sell for $250,000 than some folks are thinking it will be. But, I respect the fact that their money is precious to them. And when you start getting up in mills, there's going to be some reasons why not. But, take a look at our bike paths and compare them to our roads. How did we perform against Wayne County's performance? Huh? We're head and shoulders over them. People laughed all winter about, your bike paths were ready to run before the cars were able to run on the roads. And we don't have any potholes in our bike paths. So again, I believe that this commission is going to find that our residents want to have first-class bike paths. That's why they came here.
And I think if we provide education and lazy ride and everything else, they're going to spark people's interest. And they want more and more and more. If you want more, we need your support. Mm-hmm. So as long as we provide what we can, based on our time and our resources, we may be able to convince them.
That's the second part of the equation. If you want to build more bike paths, you better make sure that the ones you got are first class first. If you let all of them fall apart because you want to build a new one from point A to point B, you won't get either. Mm-hmm. Let's make sure that we give our residents the first class product that they want.
Any questions or comments about the potential millage?
Trying to take everything in, and no ideas right off the top of my head.
I don't see a millage even being proposed until the next fiscal year.
Okay, that's where I was getting. I just wanted to let folks have a chance to chime in, because I know that last month, at least in the meeting minutes, it was proposed that we get in on the next cycle available. And I was, again, you don't have to convince me that we need to restore the paths that we have and take care of what we got, or that if people do take pride. I just strategically want to make sure that we've got sort of a target for a goal of like what we're looking at, when would we be going for a millage, and kind of work back from there. So that way we've got a good game plan.
Kind of a cute idea, but it was a half,
Yeah.
how good our paths.
Also, I believe if we show the community that we have a preventive maintenance program on our bike paths and we use the money wisely, I think they'll be behind us wholeheartedly in the future. We just have to show them that we can have a PM record of how we take care of the bridges and the paths in the future.
Anyone read the proposal from Wes Pfeiffer in detail?
I've skimmed it a lot. I haven't,
Well,
I haven't memorized it yet.
we will by the time we do it, but it's on the next Township Board agenda for approval.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll get the bridges started before we even get the bike path started. But
Mhm.
I'm pressing everybody hard. I want these bike paths started in July, not October.
So just to recap about the millage discussion, our potential target election cycle would be November 2016. Does that seem like a
Or later.
reasonable? What's that?
Or later.
Okay, or later.
Now, after we pay the bill to repair the bridges and everything else, how much money will we have left until November 2016?
Approximately $20,000.
Enough to buy a little bike. Okay.
Other questions or comments? Appreciate everyone's comments on this. I'm glad we're keeping it on the front burner over here because we got a lot to do to convince folks. Moving on, Lazy Ride. Jane, do you want to make your pitch?
Okay. Lazy Ride is what, in 3-4 days from now? It's gonna be so lazy that you can finally catch up with me. Did you gonna meet at the Macomb Lion Park across from Fifth Third Bank? Meet there at 10. We're gonna leave at 10:15, allowing people to get the bikes ready. Just follow me, and do you want me to tell them where I'm planning on going? You want me to tell the route or surprise? The route? Do you want me to tell the route?
If you have it planned out, sure.
Yeah, if I remember. I'm thinking of going, if you guys are planning on coming, Lion, Macomb, go west on Macomb, south, East River, west, Grocery Parkway, south, Meridian, west, Grove, take a break, Royal Drinking Fountain, and then you go west on Grove, north on West River, go through Hawthorne, then go Meridian North, stop at the gazebo, take a break, it's lazy, and then you go up to Ferry, go west to Park Lane, stop, and back to the park. I'm guessing about a couple hours. We're gonna take our time, and I will make sure everybody follow me. And it'll be lazy, and I'll plan to be the rain or shine. So whoever show up, we're gonna go. So be there.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Do you need any help or
Yeah.
any comments on this? I know you talked about the liability waiver. Is it something that we need to discuss this evening?
Yeah. Well, Wally, since April, did you have a chance to talk to a lawyer about the waiver? Should we have the waiver or what? Good question.
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. For a legal point of view, suppose somebody get hurt. Is there a way that I can protect myself, or the commission, or the township?
Yeah, I think you participate in this as a volunteer, just like if you got on the bike path and rode yourself. I'm looking at this as just a group of people riding bikes together, and there's no need for a structured waiver, in my opinion. We make things too difficult. You need to ride the tandem bike and your attorney's on the back chair. That's too difficult.
Okay, that's fine. I can start.
Just an opinion, Jane, just my opinion.
Is Dale aware of this? I can't remember if
It was
he's
sent to him.
Okay.
He's not responded. And I didn't press him.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe in the future. So I'm just gonna.
Let's just play it by ear this time. It's an informal event, and either Wally or I can ask Dale in the future, hey, is this something we should pursue? Just double check.
Okay, that's fine. And also, Donna is willing to be the caboose, the back of the trail,
Right.
just to make sure nobody's left behind. Now, the people are welcome to leave whenever they want. I'm not counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's come and go, whatever. and Bob will be there to kind of like keep an eye out. Now, because Alan is on leave, I emailed to him to have maybe his reserves to help. But because he's on leave, the reserves have not been contacted. So I spoke to Officer Taylor, and I emailed to him, can you maybe have police cars to follow us? But I have not heard from him yet. So plan B is stay on the light, down an hour light, watch our little hen, chicken, and then it'll be fine.
One question, as far as if somebody gets a flat or has some sort of repair issues, do we have anybody that's volunteered that has the mechanical knowledge to potentially help folks out? Have we reached out to any of the bike shops to see if they, or the Downriver Cycle organization to see if maybe there's some volunteers that would like to help out with the event?
I could, but as I said on the flyer, make sure your bike's in good shape, have a water, and bring your phone. I figure most of the bikers are going to be island residents. They're like a minute from home. They can have a car there to pick them up. But this is something I can look into in the future if there's a lot of people. But I plan to bring my tire pump, just in case.
Who do you have out there as a towing service when you go for a ride on your bike now? You got a cell phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who would you call if you had a flat tire?
You fix it yourself if you have a spare with you.
You're a Barradur, sir. You didn't know that.
Groups or ride individually.
It's a casual group cycle.
Jane has. I've done Tour Detroit and several other ones.
Yeah, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
And they have the same. People are flat, so. Depending on the people you have.
And I can use the experience from this summer to improve, to do better next year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I plan to.
Everybody has positive.
John, are you interested in all in being, potentially part of our, larger group where we bounce ideas off of? So if Jay and I or anyone else on the commission's coming up with some of this stuff, that we might be able to send you an email and you can give your frank answers as far as advice on some of these events. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you wouldn't mind spreading the word about all the work that we're doing, that we're looking for comments, on these type of events, as well as, like you said, came up here tonight, and about the roads specifically or the paths. There's only 7 of us up here, so we're not finding everything. So we need plenty of extra eyes, ears, and even noses on the ground, looking at this stuff. Great. If you don't mind leaving us your contact information before you take off, we'd appreciate it. Okay. Anything else for Lazy Ride?
Just looking forward to it this weekend. I know the community's looking forward to it. Just going to ask everybody that morning, be cautious on the roads. But I know Grosse Ile is a large community of cyclists and walkers. So they pretty much, it's a great place to cycle and walk. And we all watch out for one another. I'm looking forward to it Saturday morning.
And the animals, too. Poor animals.
Okay. Tour de Ile. Jane, what do you got for us on that? I know you've been our representative as far as the planning effort with Tour de Ile.
Yeah. I went to a meeting a month ago with Historical Society, with the Nature Conservatory, and we worked together as a team to make a route for Grosse Ile only. They have 4 mile, 9 mile, 16 mile, 30, and 75 mile. I just focused the bottom 3. And I put the road on the map, on Google Maps, and then we added points of interest. We were supposed to have a meeting last week, but I think it was postponed to next week. So I believe we have a few people signed up for the Tour de Ile. It's going to be starting at the airport September 20th in the morning. And the website, tourdeile.com, is up. Mm-hmm. And if you guys, the community wants to sign up, sign up.
Blessing of the bikes. I know you were there. Is anyone else?
Yeah, I was there. We had a nice crowd there, and the weather was cooperative, and there were 9 bikers. We were on a different route this time. It was nice. And I think due to a lot of conflicts, graduation and weddings and all that stuff, we had a nice, cute little crowd. And we had the police escort, which was very, people like, what's going on? And it was nice. And we're going to try to do it again next year.
Okay.
It was worth it.
Great. On to new business. Island Fest. So, we had quite a few events going on with the Island Fest. Jane leading up our bike part of the parade, which we had great participation from commission staff. And then we had our booth specifically at the hangar for Island Fest, where we were able to distribute lots of educational material, stickers, pamphlets on the actual paths, as well as the rest stops and fountains along the way. And then, of course, we had our public outreach exercise, asking folks, how do they use the island for walking and biking? Where do they start? Where do they go to? And we've got lots of comments on that. And Jane, I know you did provide a summary. Did you bring those with us today?
I completely forgot. I'll bring it next meeting.
Okay,
I'll
not a problem.
typing out the comments for you.
I was going to mainly suggest that we go over them more in detail in a study session coming up, because there's a lot. And I know, Aaron, that you were able to provide a good summary to DPS at some of the the top tier corridors. Do you want to recite those again as far as what you're saying with DPS?
There were probably more than what I mentioned to DPS. The ones that I mentioned to DPS were relevant to the roads millage that they have coming up. Mm-hmm. But the ones that I mentioned were East River, Bellevue, West River, and Church. And Church was more with respect to the condition of the road and possibly a sidewalk on from Thoroughfare to Meridian. East River, a lot of people would like to see a bike path or biking facilities, but I think at the least, maybe bike lanes, clean it up a little bit. Same with West River, certainly a smoother surface. And it sounded like people might want a bike path or something along Bellevue because we have Centennial Farm, you have Water's Edge and all the things that are going on. You have a lot of kids going there in the summer for swimming and activities and things like that. So they were concerned about safety along there. And like I said, there are other things that were mentioned at Island Fest, but those were the ones that were relevant to what DPS is doing.
I also mentioned Groseal Parkway because we've heard that quite a bit, and as well as here tonight, as far as folks getting on to Groseal, as well as folks trying to get off to get to Elizabeth Park, and in some conversations, not in a meeting space, it seemed like there was a lot of focus that there might be some low-hanging fruit on there as well.
People definitely mentioned that, but when we were at the DPS meeting, it looked like from their map that west of Meridian wouldn't be addressed. Mm-hmm. Whenever they were talking about looking at the parkway, I think it was just east of Meridian.
Yeah. Anyone else have any comments or anything they'd like to add? I know all of us were working the booth over the weekend, and thank you everyone for your help. There's a lot of time to volunteer, especially Bob. You were burning the candle both ends. Working Island Fest, doing recreation stuff, as well as helping us out with the booth. So.
Well, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I enjoyed the whole weekend at Island Fest, and we did have a large turnout for the BPAC table, especially with the Knights of Columbus breakfast Sunday morning. My goodness, we were nonstop, but also on Friday night and Saturday night. I mean, we had a good turnout of citizens and even off Island people that wanted to know about where would they park and stuff there. We just took in a lot of information, and it was a great place to have that table. Whoever, I think Alan picked it out. Alan did a great job putting it right by the number one food vendor on Sunday mornings. We got a good crowd. But thank you. No, we had a good turnout for Island Fest.
Else. As I mentioned before about the Island Fest, about having a study session, based on that, it'd be nice to have that summarized report, potentially digitize that information. I know that we had push pins, and Jane was able to take some pictures, but hopefully I'll be able to put that into our mapping effort. And then I know we had talked potentially about recreating that type of public outreach at other events moving forward. So if there's other events potentially like Walk the Path with the Baradur, we get other folks out there, or if there's other potential meetings that we could go to, and I appreciate letting us know about those, so that way we can make sure that we do the best public outreach as possible. And again, this can all be incorporated into our non-motorized plan, and then forward on to folks at DPS if it involves roads, or provide coordination with recreation, which is doing their 5-year recreation master plan right now. So next item on the agenda was a summary from the Department of Public Services meeting where we attended last week, and the folks over there were great to give us a great discussion about what's included with their proposed package of fixes for roads as well as water. Again, we're looking at about 2.55 mils for that. The map shown on screen is color coded that shows which roads are going to be affected. With the red ones getting a chip seal, green ones getting a resurfacing, and the yellow getting a total reconstruct. And the only yellow is Church Road, east of the canal. So, as Aaron had mentioned, there's a lot of ideas that we might be able to piggyback on to make sure that we're increasing the safety and the pleasure for walking and biking. But again, the pavement itself, fix that. That's probably 90% of the problem on Island, because so many of our roads are great for walking and biking already. So I think we were all in agreement that we'd like to help DPS with this charge as far as trying to get this millage through, because it's going to help us tremendously. And they've helped us in the past with projects like the horse mill path, where we wouldn't have been able to do that without the drainage funds. So unless I hear differently, I like us to be able to help participate in conversations, and maybe we can talk to Mr. Kostick as well as others in the township government about is there a specific strategy for trying to get this millage passed, and what part can BPAC play in that? Because I know we've got some great public outreach possibilities. Wally or Aaron or Bob, I know your guys were all at the meeting too. Do you have any questions or comments about the DPS meeting?
Well, I was surprised to hear how many cars actually travel Church Road between Meridian and East River. And DPS said it was 3,500 cars a day. And I guess that has a lot to do with them redoing the whole road itself. But other than that, I think BPAC did a fine job presenting their case with DPS. Aaron came up with some good ones, as well as Jane. And Brian, you hit a home run with some of the questions that were asked of you by, I think it was Phil Kennedy and Bill Boswick. And you laid it on the line, and if there's anything that we can do to help them, we're more than willing to. And hopefully between the two commissions, we're able to work together in the future and get the roads better on Grosse Hill. Thank you.
Sir. Jane, have anything you'd like to add?
I survived.
That's true. I mean,
I thought the meeting was going to be short. That's why I didn't bother anyone. But I think I survived, and Bob was kind enough to kind of go over with me after the meeting, so it sounded like we did fine.
you held your own. I couldn't even tell that you're flinching. Aaron, anything else you want to add? I know you talked about it before. So. Okay. Great. Moving on, the last item I have on the agenda is something that came up both as a result of the DPS meeting when I was talking with folks afterwards, as well as side conversation between Aaron and I, where we're talking about the paths and the needs for consistent signage in intersections. So, Aaron, if you don't mind, can you start with the anecdote of what you experienced recently?
Sure. My family and I were traveling on the bike paths. I was with my two younger kids who were on bikes with training wheels, and then my husband and I were actually just walking, and he was pushing a stroller, and we were going south on the Meridian path, but we were on the east side of the road, so we had already crossed, and we were right at the intersection with Ferry. And if you remember, there's a stop sign on the bike path like there is at just about every intersection. And I had brought this up when we very first started the commission, and the way it was explained is to treat it more like an Idaho stop, or sometimes it shouldn't even be there. It's just to make people aware of traffic. And there was a car that was also traveling south on Meridian, and they did not have a blinker on. So I assumed they were going to continue going south, but they actually turned right in front of us, and so we kind of had to stop and pull our kids back from crossing Ferry. And he pointed at the stop sign and said, "You're supposed to stop." Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, in his defense, that stop sign is there, so technically that's true, but I think the signage on the island paths are very confusing. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them should not be there, and so I was going to ask and direct it more at Wally, before we get this work done this summer, is it possible to talk about even removing some of the signs or changing the signs? I would be happy to go through and do a full survey of which signs should be there and which ones should not, because a lot of it depends on where the stoplights and stop signs are for the traffic on the road.
I knew you were going to do that. The signage and all of the stop signs, I have also been irritated by the fact that we're putting stop signs on bike paths. If you want to stop people on a bike path, paint a stop sign on the bike path. Right? Put a line across it, write the letters STOP in the right order, and people will tend to respect that more than a stop sign. They don't expect a stop sign for bicycles. Bicyclists are often guilty of doing rolling stops, all right?
Just as cars are.
Just as cars are, sure. I'm beating both sides of the argument here, but when you said that, he said you're supposed to stop, a pedestrian has the right of way at all times, even if they're on a bike. So that's somebody who is arrogant and lazy. I don't know who that was, but with a big mouth. Huh?
I didn't catch his name. We didn't have an opportunity.
Better you than me.
It wasn't a vanity play on the back, Ed, or with 3Ds.
At any rate, I understand what you're saying. We did have some other conversations, and I think they're worth exploring, especially the no right on red signs over at Meridian and Macomb. I think that's a darn good idea, and I don't know why we've not done that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get some resistance on that, but I think that we're going to have to go for that one. Both northbound on Meridian, making a right-hand turn going east on Macomb, and then westbound Macomb going northbound. Those both should be no right on reds.
You guys bring up. Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, excuse me. And stop 5 feet before the stoplight or stop sign. Thank you. But no, when I first started riding the cycles here, as Aaron was saying, the stop signs, I thought it was a learning curve for little kids to learn when they ride their bikes and they're on training wheels, as she says, to stop 5 feet before the stop sign at that white little thing there. But the heck,
We've had conversations
I'm
at
sure there has
this
been.
table in the past about how many signs people wanted on bike paths. I don't want any of them.
I don't want none. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, if there's a curve in the bike path and you can't see with your own two eyes, you shouldn't be riding a bike, all right? I don't need somebody with an arrow showing me to go left. And, you know, maybe I'm a little bullheaded about that, but I think we have too many signs now. This is supposed to be a rural or semi-rural casual place, and we don't need sign pollution.
Well, I don't want to go, throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that we don't need any signs, but I do wholeheartedly agree that we need to be, that at least anecdotally, it seems like there's way too many signs, redundant signs, and that I would like to go in with a scalpel instead and make sure that we're putting out signs where it does make sense. And John, I know you had your hand raised, and I'll get to you in a second over here, sir. But I just want to let folks know that there is a specific guide, basically, the Holy Bible for biking infrastructure. It's the AASHTO Bike Guide. It came out in 2012. It's the 4th edition. This is what all of the road engineers across the nation are using. This is what MDOT uses. This is what Wayne County uses. This is what cities are supposed to be using as well. It's the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. And so they get together every so often, and you've got a great cross-section of folks. You've got DOTs in rural areas. You've got city officials. You've got the police and fire and public response, as well as cyclists. And together, they go back and forth, and they try to find a common denominator of what actually works. So as we're looking at, and questioning about these signs and, how do we increase safety and increase usage, I'd encourage us to be looking at this guide. And, specifically when we're talking about stop signs and, intersection control, we should be looking at it from one of two ways. A side path, which is right next to the road, which is mostly what we have here on Grosio with the Meridian Path and the Grow Path. But in some cases, there is what they're considered just more of a path or a trail because it's a mid-block intersection. It's actually outside the functional area of the intersection. So in some cases where we have the path crossing north of Horse Mill, that might be considered more of a mid-block crossing. And what they look at within the AASHTO guide, specifically on the use of stop signs on signs, is that in all cases we should be looking to provide the least amount of restriction that is effective. So right on target with everyone saying, hey, we don't need that sign. Someone should. It's common sense that people need to stop there, or that it's common sense that they need to turn. and that putting up these signs can lead to disregarding signs that are needed for safety. So, and again, they specifically mention that in many cases, a yield sign will work better than a stop sign because common sense prevails in those situations. And then, rather than having the stop sign, you're showing yield. It makes the cyclist actually abiding by the law rather than breaking it. So, what I was proposing, and I wanted to get your ideas, and I'm glad Aaron already volunteered for this. But proposing looking at every part of our path and look at the crossings, look at the driveways. We could divide it up between all of us on the commission, and examine for the pathway. And I look at it from a default standpoint. Look at where the path is. Look at the road that you're next to. Is that road specifically, does it have a stop sign? So, for example, if we're on Meridian and we're going to Ferry, does Meridians have a stop sign when it crosses Ferry? No, it doesn't. So, as a default, you'd say, well, we probably might not need a stop sign at that location or any sort of traffic control. But then beyond that, look for specific cues that might warrant a specific type of sign. So there could be sight distance issues, bushes in the way that might make someone have to be a little bit more cautious when crossing that area. Maybe it's mid-block, and so the motorist might not even know that they're coming upon a path. So in that case, you might want to provide some additional warnings for the road user. So and then at that point, you can decide, well, if we do need some sort of traffic control, does it make sense to be a yield or a stop? And then be looking for that redundant signage. So on the horse mill path or anywhere else where we have a slight curve, and then we've got an overreactive sign that makes it look like it's a 180-degree turn, and then you're going to fall off a cliff. It obviously doesn't make sense in that situation. So I want to get your opinions on that. And say, look, I think this is redundant signage. We don't need that. Or a path end sign. Is that specifically necessary? But again, as Wally was saying about the stop bars, in some cases, can we be looking at pavement markings? Maybe at mid-block locations, we could do what we're doing on Macomb Street, and we have that high visibility crosswalk marking, which that lights up at night, but you don't see it really during the day too much, and it's much more effective at letting motorists know that you should be expecting pedestrians in this area. And especially when you're north of Horse Mill Road at night and it's pitch black, you're not going to see those two little lines crossing the street. And that sign, that's not going to really work as well either. So it's just clutter. And I do have a template that a former commissioner has given me that could potentially be used. So if you're interested in that, I can forward that on to you. But I just, again, wanted to get your guys' ideas on that. And after I get your ideas, have John come up and he can say his piece on what he thinks about this. Jane, I'll start with you.
Well, I remember when you first started the commission 3 years ago. You can hear me now?
You have to talk kind of into it. You're on.
Okay. I remember when you first started the commission, you came up with a project, divided the island. Maybe we can use the same layout, if you can resend it. And then we can go ahead and do our own little area with stop sign, vision block. We can do that again. Because we never really presented except her.
Yeah, I like that. I just want to make sure that we focus on the paths first. Because I know when we did that last time, it was a little overwhelming because we were looking at an entire area, multiple miles. So that would be my only suggestion with that, is we focus on the paths and like the functional intersections of those paths within the road.
Or maybe Aaron can divide the path, Horseman, Meridian, Grove, but give us a portion of all 7 of us.
Wally, do you think this would be useful? Could we give this to folks at the township as far as, you think they'd take it seriously as far as our potential recommendations for changes within signage?
There's a sentiment in the township that we have too many signs. So yeah, I think that that's possible.
Yeah.
Bob, anything else, sir?
Well, I find that there's way too many signs, and all these stop signs create confusion. cars think that bicycles and walkers should stop because they have a stop sign. But like Wally said, the pedestrians, since I was young, have the right of way. But in this case, until something is done, and Alan has talked about this, before you cross, make sure you make eye contact with the individual that's driving the car. Now, don't just look at the car. The person could be on a cell phone, texting, or whatever. Make sure you make eye contact with that individual. As far as knocking it down to a yield sign, well, now we're down to common sense. A yield sign to me is common sense. Do we really need a yield sign? Here we're supplementing a stop sign for a yield sign. We're going back to another different kind of sign. It just requires common sense, riding a bike, and how to cross a road. And I do believe there's just too many signs. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron.
I've said my piece.
Donna, you've been quiet on the other end. Oh, you're not hearing us very well?
No.
Oh, I apologize.
Sorry.
So I was just asking if you had any questions or comments or feelings about potentially doing a survey of the path, specifically looking at intersections and where the path is crossing driveways and looking for safety issues, especially looking at the signage and seeing, does the signage make sense? Do we need something else, or do we need to remove it completely?
No, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I really. Whoops, I'm sorry. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I love the idea of the writing on the cement instead or the asphalt, whatever. I just think, like you said, I think that's more attention getting, and I would be willing to take a piece of that and check it, survey the area as well.
Thank you. Last thing I was going to add was that I thought it'd be good to potentially get Chief Porcerelli's input on this. So potentially after we have our summaries and we get together and we talk about it and feel about that we have more of a unified voice on this, presenting it to Chief Porcerelli and see what his comments on it, since it is a public safety issue as well.
Right.
John, do you still have comments, sir? If you don't mind, come up to the podium. We make Wally do this too when he's at.
There's been the term signs, so the question I would question would be, what signs have been used, whether they're stop signs, yield signs, directional signs. In your inventory of signs, just simply, let the people know what kind you're using. First of all, I think that might be helpful because we're using this general term signs. So, is there a list of the ones that are installed that would help people?
Stop signs and directional signs were basically the two categories.
Yeah, there's also more like informational signs. So potentially, attached to another signpost, you'd have a sign that says Horse Mill Path ends at Park Lane. So if you're traveling from Meridian, eastbound on the Horse Mill Path, you're going to come across a sign about a quarter of a mile, actually even less than that, probably like an eighth of a mile down the pathway before you get to thoroughfare, saying that the path ends at Park Lane, which I guess I can understand if you're off island and you only want to ride on paths, maybe you want to know that information, but I think it's kind of a little bit too soon to be letting folks know about that before thoroughfare. And then they tell you again after you cross Horse Mill and then cross, thoroughfare. So it's a redundant sign that you have it twice to begin with. So that's an informational sign, and it's just something that, since we keep hearing from the community, as well as it's a kind of a sentiment here on the commission that we want to keep signs to a minimum that are necessary or actually helpful, that at least just look at the signs out there and see, does it make sense? So yeah, it could include traffic control signs, like the stop signs or yield signs, but could also include bike route signs, and other things like on the road that might be warning folks about the path crossing. That help at all?
Yeah.
Brian, if I may, one more time.
Sure.
All the commissioners one day take a brief survey of all the streets that touch our bike paths. And MDOT, Michigan Department of Transportation, deems that the white stripe for a stop sign should be 5 feet. How many streets across our bike paths have a white stripe 5 feet before the stop sign? You get time, take a look.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a good little survey to see that.
It'd be good to know, but I think it might be a little overkill to put a stop bar at every single crossing of the street.
Yeah, well, the Michigan Department of Transportation, it does state it. I know, I see where you're getting. I find that when I'm on the bike path, a lot of people stop after the stop sign. And just like our little white bar at our little stop signs on our bike path, which I thought was a learning curve for young kids, you know.
So are you talking about stop bars on our path or stop bars on the street?
On the street.
Oh, okay.
On the street. Thank
See
you.
what you're saying. Gotcha. Any other comments before moving into reports and closing? All right. Is there any upcoming rides and runs to specifically publicize at this time? Hearing none, move into the Township Liaisons report. Molly, is there anything else that you have for us, sir?
Just two quick things. Number one, I gave each of you a copy of the Greenways Open Space brochure. I think you'll find it interesting. It's 16 pages of good information about the soft paths on the island. And soft paths invite bikes of wide tire. We've got a lot of work being done as far as volunteers spreading wood chips into low or wet areas, and we're kind of waiting for the weather to clear up so that we don't lose our workers in the ponds back there. But we will make these paths again passable. There is an interesting path we're starting to work on off the Manchester, off of Meridian in front of the middle school, not middle school, the park,
Elementary school.
the elementary school, pardon me. It is going to be a fit strip. It's being commandeered by a 5th or 6th grader by the name of Mitch Lewis. And he's been working with our chair. If you open up that Greenways Open Space brochure to page 8, you see exactly what it looks like. It'll give people an opportunity to park near the school and walk about 1.5 miles without having to walk up to a certain point and turn around and walk back down the same path.
Mm-hmm.
I object to paths that go in small circles, and I object to dead ends. I think people want to go for a walk. They don't want to walk back and forth on the same path. So this strip will be marked with small signatures indicating how far you've gone, and perhaps pointing out an unusual tree, or the fact this is a deer path, watch for deer, just for people to get entertained while they walk. A great activity for exercise, and that's going to be, I think, one of a couple fit strips. So give them credit for what they're doing with soft paths. And I did mention earlier that paving is starting this week. It started today at the point where you were unfortunate to run into some loose gravel. So if you're out there listening, there's a lot of it going on. During that course of the addition of the chips, there's going to be loose chips. So you may want to just avoid the area rather than take a chance on driving on marbles. Once it's set, they'll be great.
Of course. We're happy to have those roads repaired. Two
That's all I
questions
have.
for you, sir. First, you mentioned fit strip. I think I know what this is, but would you mind to explain for folks at home that might not know what a fit strip is?
It's an opportunity for you to have some metrics when you take a walk. Give you an idea of how far you've walked, how many calories perhaps you've burned, and It's just a designated exercise trail in its simplest terms.
Okay.
They've staked it all out. They've walked in some of the areas that the path has been already established, and then they've extended the loop through some of the parts that just only the brave have established. It's going to be a nice strip when it's done. It'll look just like page 8.
Nice. I noticed you got the old path creek bed, labeled in there too, which is nice because
You'll have some. You notice that it does say deer run in there.
deer run. Oh, okay.
Is there a deer run showing there?
I don't.
Number 3, page 9.
Okay.
So these open space trails are the soft path equivalent of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I have encouraged you and Cliff, since I've been around in this liaison position for both, to coordinate your efforts because you have great paths. Greenways Open Space also has great paths. Together, we have stupendous opportunities for people to explore this island without having to be in a motorized vehicle.
We are working on that, sir. I've been reaching out to them, and I'm looking forward to things to come. Some other questions for you. Since you have that one labeled, I was wondering about the ferry gauge trail. I know that there's some issues with that one specifically, but is there a way that we could potentially let folks know about that, even though that it does, part of it is informal and crosses private property? So I know that I use that, and a lot of people in my neighborhood do, and it's a great connection if you're trying to get to downtown, or if you're trying to get to the middle school without having to do a detour and get into the Church Road and Meridian intersection.
It comes up time and again. Some of the objections have been the inability of the police department to get down through there. They have a gator now. They can get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what a gator is?
Oh yeah, it's like a quad off-road vehicle.
They don't request permission to run it on a bike path. They need to run it down a path or a bike path, they will. So there is a security issue taken care of by having that device, which eliminates one of the excuses for not developing it. Maybe we should bring that one up again, right?
Okay.
It comes up perennially, and it somehow just disappears. It's kind of like the Anderson cut for bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
It comes up once a year. Everybody thinks it's a great idea. Nobody does anything about it. We've got to dedicate ourselves to 2 of them.
Definitely. I'm convinced of it. We just got to figure out what funds we can use for it.
Anderson cut shouldn't take much.
Mm-hmm.
It's road all the way, except through a small section of guardrail. You don't
Yeah.
have to make it wide enough for a car to come through.
No, we shouldn't.
And on the other side that connects to the thoroughfare run,
Mm-hmm.
it is our property. We should be able to use it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I got some other ideas I'd like to
That-
bounce off you another time, but
That Anderson cut gives you such a beautiful view of both directions of the fastest road on the island. So it makes it safe for you to get to the bike.
mm-hmm.
Safer.
Last thing you touched on, because you said the soft trails that bikes can go on. I've heard in the past that formally bikes aren't allowed on the trails. Is that no longer the case, or did I hear wrong? Just want to make sure that on these paths that bicycles are allowed to be riding.
Ever heard that expression, there's a million stories in the naked city, and this is just one of them? You want to ride your bicycle on a soft path, bring it down. Just
Okay.
don't bring a skinny wheel bike down because you're going to have difficulty. But if you have a mountain bike or a trail bike, that's some nice riding, some slow speed riding.
Glad for the invitation. I'll take you up.
Take it up.
Now, where is the Anderson cut? Where is it located exactly?
It's at Anderson Road in Meridian.
Just south of Church Road on Meridian.
There's a platted road there, but it doesn't connect Anderson and Meridian. And I think that we should make it a bike path.
I think we need to do something. I'm not sure if we can
Well,
call it pass, but yeah.
it's certainly a great alternative than the danger that you face rocking up or riding on Church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anderson Cut's good, as well as just where Thoroughfare meets up with Meridian. That's generally where I cross. But both of those are great opportunities, and
Mhm.
if whichever one we move forward with, I think that's a good spot where we should be looking at one of those mid-block crossings so that way folks can get to the path.
We agree.
I agree with Wally on the Anderson Cut. You got a better sight of vision north and south on Meridian. I do enjoy the thoroughfare cut, but that curve with some of the vegetation, maybe we should get out there or something and cut it back. But your sight of view is limited to where Anderson Cut, you have a clean shot north and south for vision, for crossing.
Cool. Well, let's put those in that the survey, and let's talk about this moving forward. I look forward to it. Moving into the chairperson's report, I just got 2 items. First one is I did talk to Ted about a formal Groseal BPAC email address, and he told me specifically to talk to Dale about that. And he did warn us that anything that would be on that email address would be foilable, which doesn't concern me because I don't have anything to hide as far as the bike paths are concerned. And I know last time, Wally, you'd mentioned that you'd talk to Dale about that as well. Have you heard anything from him, or should I make contact?
This is a developing thing. They've had bigger fish to fry recently. Okay. And it should come someday.
Okay. I just don't want to be bugging him if you're already talking to him.
No, he doesn't take it as bugging. If you have a legitimate question to ask your township manager, you have a right as a citizen, let alone as a commissioner. Mm-hmm. Please feel free. You don't have to ask me, but that's what I'm supposed to do, be your liaison.
Sure.
And, chief troublemaker for this commission. So,
some of us might be fighting you for that title. Anyways,
there's only 6 of you.
And that's a compliment, by the way. Anyways,
it's only 5.
The last item I just wanted to mention was that I've been working with Molly, who's running the Safety Town program, which actually began this week. So it's running Monday, June 15th through for the next 2 weeks. And she was looking for somebody to take over the day that's going to be talking about bicycle safety. She was feeling that she wanted to have just a different instructor, so that way that the kids stay engaged. I've been working on my end with connections to see if there was somebody that could specifically fill that role for her, and so far I haven't come up with anybody. I know folks on this commission, a lot of us have day jobs and such, and so it's hard to fulfill that time requirement because it's between 1 and 3 p.m. But if you know of anybody that would be interested, either have them contact Molly or myself. And if worse comes to worse, I might try to fill those shoes.
I gave Molly stickers.
The stickers? Oh, that reminds me. One other thing is her materials are very old for when it comes to the biking safety. I think they're from like the 1970s, and it pretty much just says biking is fun. It's like a 1-page pamphlet. So I said, I gave her, URL links to the League of Michigan Bicyclists brochures. I know that we have quite a few copies. I was wondering, since we were putting on a child safety course in May, and we have some left over from that, what folks feel about if I brought some of those out to the safety town.
See, no problem with it.
You want me to deliver I think there are about 18, 20 kids. You want me to deliver the kid safety brochure tomorrow?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll give it to Christina and then you can give it to Molly.
Okay.
Got it down.
So that concludes my report. Is there anything else that anybody would like to say before anybody makes a motion for adjournment?
You asked, I should have asked earlier about adding to the agenda. I asked about the bike rack.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot about that one. Yep.
Okay, so we have 2 bike racks. It's in the garage right now, and I'm proposing 2 possible locations to install them. I figured we need to get them installed because we're biking now. Mm-hmm. One possible place is by the sewer. There's a concrete, maybe 4x4. Maybe put a rack right there.
Which school?
No, right there.
Oh, the fountain?
No, right behind the building, you can see the window, there's the concrete with the sewer. I thought you could put a bike there on top of the concrete, so you don't have to interfere the mowing. And the other rock that we have, I'm thinking somewhere around the Macomb gazebo area on Macomb and Meridian, and maybe put the bike rack there.
That would be one of my suggestions. There's no bike racks there currently.
Right by the water fountain.
Fine. So should we decide on a location so we can place a work order and Donna can maybe do that?
There have been so many discussions about placing these bike racks, and that they've been here for over a year. And John Keim says, all you have to do is tell me where they need to go, and I'll put them there.
That's what he told me.
Somebody just needs to tell them where they wants these two bike racks.
You have a suggestion of where, and Donna and I can work together to get the work order going?
Donna, why don't you just have John put them right the two places, all right?
Gotcha.
We don't need a letter from Congress to put in a bike.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But am I to understand these bike racks, they go into the cement?
they're permanent.
They're permanent and into the cement, so okay, that's what we
Can
need.
be locked
Yep,
down, I believe.
we can get that handled.
I think Macomb Commons is a perfect place. For one of them.
Absolutely.
If I may. The one in Macomb Commons is great. This one over here that we talked about outside the building, it has a sewer cover. If this is going to be a permanent fixture, are they going to be able, is this an electrical sewer or
No,
a storm
it'll be
sewer
on the
cover?
side, like
on
right
the side?
on the grass.
Oh,
The
okay.
bike can be on the concrete.
Okay, then that'd be a great place.
The rope interfering.
All right.
So at Township Hall, okay.
Yeah. So do you guys like the idea of the two locations so we can get that installed?
That's perfect.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Jane's
so Donna
calling
and I
for a
can work on
vote.
it
Come on,
together.
guys,
Okay.
give her some support.
Okay, I will make the motion to have DPS install the two permanent bike racks, one located at Township Hall and the other one at Macomb Commons.
Second motion?
Very good.
Which part did you need us to repeat? What I specifically said or what Bob said?
Very good. I said, go.
Oh, okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. With that, can we get a motion for adjournment?
Certainly can.
Any support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Walk, bike, and drive safe.
Thank you.
Good job, everyone.
Wow.